December 1st, 1939, Kala River, Finland. At the edge of a frozen tree line, the world is nothing but white silence. Snow hanging heavy on the pines, breath freezing the moment it leaves a man's lips, and the distant thud of artillery echoing like a heartbeat beneath the earth. The temperature has plunged to 40 degrees F, cold enough to freeze a rifle bolt solid if treated without respect. But the man crouched beneath the snow-dusted branches knows this land, knows this cold. He has lived here his entire life, and on this day he melts into the forest with the same ease as a shadow merging with dusk. His name is Simo Häyhä, a quiet farmer from southern Finland, now a soldier of the Finnish army, wrapped in a handmade white camouflage suit that blends seamlessly with the drifts around him. No scope, no fancy equipment. Only his trusted M2830 rifle, iron sights gleaming dimly in the faint light. To the west, a low rumble rolls across the frozen marshes. Soviet tanks, T-26s, clank forward, accompanied by long lines of infantry from the advancing forces of the Red Army, pushing relentlessly deeper into Finland. Their orders are simple: crush resistance, take Helsinki, end the winter war quickly. But here, at the Kala River, one farmer stands in their path. Häyhä lies prone, packed into the snow so tightly he's almost indistinguishable from the ground itself. He has built himself a shallow depression in the drift, stamping the snow in front of his muzzle so that steam will not give away his position with each shot. Even the moisture in his breath is controlled. He draws slow, measured inhales, exhaling downward into his scarf. The forest is quiet, so quiet you can hear the frost crack on the branches. Then faintly, voices, Russian. A small reconnaissance group approaches through the trees, unaware that death waits less than 40 meters away. Häyhä doesn't shift, doesn't blink. He simply lowers his cheek to the cold wood of the rifle and aligns the iron sight with the leading soldier's chest. The man trudges forward, rifle slung lazily, breath billowing like a small cloud. You're there, standing just behind Häyhä in the imaginary space the narration gives you, close enough to feel the freezing air bite at your face, close enough to hear the steady, rhythmic calm in his breathing. He moves with a precision that feels more like instinct than training. The soldier draws closer. 30 meters. 20. Häyhä squeezes the trigger. The crack of the rifle is sharp and clean, swallowed almost instantly by the endless forest. The Soviet soldier drops without even a cry, snow puffing around his body. Before the others even register what's happened, Häyhä has already chambered another round. Second shot, another drops. Third shot, panic erupts. The remaining Soviets dive for cover, shouting orders, firing wildly into the trees. But Häyhä is already gone. He has slid backward, silent as smoke, disappearing into the labyrinth of pine and snow that he knows better than any map. The Soviets scramble in confusion, firing at ghosts, shivering from fear as much as cold. This is his battlefield. This is his hunting ground. By nightfall, word passes through Soviet lines. A phantom in white stalks the forest. A sniper, deadly, unseen, unmatched. Men whisper about him in the dark, voices trembling as they talk about the ghost of Kala. The legend has begun, but Simo Häyhä pays it no mind. He is not here for glory or fame. He is here because his homeland is burning, because his neighbors have taken up arms, and because in this war one man with skill and resolve can stand against an army. As the pale winter sun dips behind the tree line, Häyhä returns to a small, camouflaged dugout. He sits beside his comrades who look at him with a mixture of awe and disbelief. He has spoken barely a dozen words all day, but in the silence around the campfire, the men know exactly what the score is. And so does the Soviet command. Because before dawn breaks again, scouts in the area will report something terrifying: 6 soldiers dead, and not a single one saw the shooter. The White Death has claimed his first day of the war. December 3rd, 1939, Kala Front. The dawn breaks pale and colorless, a thin smear of gray over the snow-crusted pines. Simo steps out of the dugout, tightening the strap on his rifle case as the cold bites his exposed skin. The air is sharp enough to make a man bleed from the nose, but Simo moves through it as if born from the frost itself. Around him, the Finnish defensive line is a patchwork of trenches, snow walls, and camouflaged firing pits, hardly the fortifications of a major army. Just farmers, carpenters, and woodsmen in white winter suits standing against a force nearly 10 times their size. Word has begun to spread among his unit. They're calling him Taikamis, the Magic Man. A name whispered with admiration. A name the Soviets will soon twist into something far darker. But Simo pays it no mind. He checks his ammunition, clean, dry, wrapped in cloth to keep the oil from freezing. He pulls a loaf of hard rye bread from his pack, snaps off a piece with gloved hands, and chews slowly while he assesses the tree line. Movement. Distant but distinct. Through a gap in the trees, Soviet infantry are advancing again, probing forces, scouts, and small assault groups meant to test the Finnish line. Their footsteps crunch loudly in the snow, betraying their progress long before they come into visual range. Simo slips into the forest, each step controlled, soundless, deliberate. The trees swallow him, frost clings to his eyebrows. A thin layer of snow rests on his shoulders by the time he finds a vantage point overlooking a shallow ravine. He drops to his stomach, brushes aside loose powder, and digs into the drift with practiced efficiency. He packs snow around the barrel to prevent flash and ricochet from revealing him. The cold numbs his fingers, but he welcomes it. It steadies the hand, quiets the pulse. A Soviet squad enters the ravine. 12 men. Not a formation, more of a wandering column, relaxed, unaware that in less than a minute their lives will hinge on a whisper of movement they do not yet see. Simo inhales. The iron sights settle. The first man falls with a shot so clean the rest don't even react. They assume he slipped on ice or tripped on some hidden route. Then the second drops. Confusion ripples through the squad. Shouts. Rifles raised. Simo cycles the bolt. A third Soviet pitches sideways into the snow, his comrades scattering in panic. Now they know. The phantom is here. A wild burst of automatic fire rips through the trees, chopping splinters from the branches above Simo. But he has already shifted positions, sliding silently behind a fallen pine trunk, snow falling over him like a burial shroud. Another shot. Another soldier falls. Their panic deepens. By the time the surviving members retreat into the forest, dragging their wounded behind them, 7 bodies lie motionless in the ravine. And not once did they see their attacker. Back at the Finnish line, officers record the kills, though Simo himself never reports numbers. His comrades do it for him, wide-eyed, astonished at the quiet farmer who slips away at dawn and returns at dusk with frost-bitten cheeks and rifle smoke lingering in his clothes. But as the days pass, Soviet commanders begin receiving disturbing reports. Small patrols wiped out. Silence in the forest. No sign of the shooter. No footprints. Some men swear they've seen a white shape drifting between the trees like a ghost. Others refuse to leave camp at all. It's only been 3 days. And Soviet morale is already cracking. But Stalin's generals are not men to be humiliated lightly. They issue new orders. Find the sniper, kill him at any cost. The hunt for the White Death begins. December 10, 1939, Northern Kala Front. The cold has sharpened into something vicious, a living thing that rakes its claws across exposed skin. Even the air feels brittle, snapping with every breath. Snow drifts waist-deep in places, concealing roots, rocks, and frozen limbs of men who will never see spring again. But Simo Häyhä moves through it with the ease of a man walking through his own barnyard. He has spent his entire life tracking elk across frozen marshland, shooting game at long distances without so much as a telescopic sight. In this frigid wilderness, he is perfectly at home, silent, invisible, deadly. The Soviets, on the other hand, are miserable. You can hear them before you see them, coughing, stumbling, hacking at the ice with their boots. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers deployed from southern regions now find themselves trapped in a landscape that punishes every step. But today, something is different. As Simo climbs a snowy ridge, he spots an unusual formation ahead. A cluster of Soviet soldiers digging in, not moving, not advancing. Strange, they're laying down sandbags, clearing lines of fire, setting up machine gun nests. They're waiting. For whom? A faint smile touches Simo's frost-bitten lips. the Soviets finally think they're ready. He settles into the powdery snow, pushing his rifle barrel through a small curtain of pine needles. The sky overhead is a flat canvas of gray, the kind of light that erases shadows and turns the world into pure contrast, white, black, nothing between. Below, Soviet officers talk in harsh whispers. It's a trap. A sniper trap. They've placed a helmet above a shovel, bouncing slightly as if worn by a man peering over a ridge. The classic bait for drawing out enemy marksmen. Simo studies it for a long moment. Too clean, too centered, too obvious. He shifts his attention to the periphery. That's when he sees it, a glint of metal, faint but unmistakable, buried in a nest of snow-covered brush. A scoped rifle. The Soviets didn't send a squad. They sent a counter-sniper team. Simo calmly unpacks a block of snow beneath his rifle, building a small platform that raises the barrel just above the edge of the bank. Then he waits. He always waits. Minutes pass. Then an hour. Then 2. Most men would succumb to the cold, muscles freezing, focus fading. But Simo is still as a carved statue, eyes locked on the faint shimmer of the counter-sniper's scope. Suddenly, movement. The Soviet sniper lifts the barrel just slightly, adjusting for wind. That tiny motion is enough. Simo fires. A whisper of powder rises from his position. A heartbeat later, the Soviet sniper slumps forward, half hidden by snow. The trap collapses instantly. Shouts erupt from below. The Soviets scramble, scanning the tree line, but their world has turned to paranoia. Every tree looks like a man, every shadow like a rifle barrel. Then another shot rings out. A machine gunner drops. Another shot. A second counter-sniper collapses before he even shoulders his weapon. Panic detonates. Some Soviets fire wildly into the trees, others flee behind their sandbags. One officer attempts to rally his men, screaming orders only to crumple with a round through his chest. Simo moves like drifting snow, sliding backward into fresh powder, becoming invisible once again. Down below, the Soviets shout a single phrase over and over. Belaya smrt, Belaya smrt. The White Death. It spreads through their ranks like wildfire. That night, Finnish intelligence intercepts Soviet radio chatter. Entire battalions are requesting permission to divert artillery, begging for heavy bombardments on suspected sniper locations. Their commanders oblige. The next morning, the sky erupts. Artillery shells scream down on the forest, tearing apart trees, vaporizing snow, leaving behind smoking craters deep enough to swallow a horse. The bombardment shakes the earth for hours. Somewhere beneath that hellscape, sheltered in a snow cave he carved himself, Simo lies curled against the frost. He listens to explosions with the calm of a man hearing distant thunder. When the barrage finally ends, smoke drifts through the shattered forest. Branches burn, steam rises from craters still glowing with heat. The Soviets believe the White Death has finally been destroyed. But as their infantry pushes forward to inspect the ruins, a single shot cracks across the desolation, sharp, deliberate, unmistakable. A Soviet lieutenant collapses into the ash. The White Death lives. And now he is angrier than ever. December 20th, 1939, Kala River line. Dawn breaks with a pale orange glow over the shattered treetops, illuminating a world that looks less like Finland and more like the surface of another planet. Scorched snow, splintered pines, and craters deep enough to swallow a truck. A forest that once whispered with life now groans beneath the weight of artillery wounds. But in that wasteland of ice and smoke, Simo Häyhä rises from a mound of snow, brushing frost from his shoulders as though emerging from hibernation. His white suit is scorched near the elbow where a fragment grazed him during the bombardment, but otherwise he is unscathed. The Soviets had fired over 10,000 shells into this sector. 10,000 shots. And not one found him. Simo tightens the strap on his rucksack, shoulders his rifle, and moves with eerie calm through the smoking ruins of the forest. He checks the sky clear, the snow fresh, the wind low, perfect conditions. The White Death goes hunting. Far ahead, Soviet infantry slog through waist-deep drifts. They move slowly, weighed down by heavy greatcoats and the dread of unseen eyes watching from the tree line. Their officers bark orders, but their voices tremble. Every man knows that somewhere out there, anywhere out there, one Finnish farmer with no scope and no mercy is waiting. And it doesn't take long. Simo spots them first, a column of 40 men trudging through a narrow gorge. He settles on a ridge to their west, digging silently into the snow, sculpting it around his body like a cocoon. His eyes narrow, his breathing slows. The first shot cuts down the lead scout. The second drops the radio operator. The third, an officer, falls before he can shout for cover. Chaos erupts. The Soviets fire blindly into the tree line, muzzle flashes blooming like frantic stars. But Simo is already gone, sliding backwards down the ridge into a fresh firing position. His movements are so fluid they barely disturb the snow. Another shot. Another Soviet falls. A machine gun crew sets up their Maxim, frantically spinning the feeding belt. Before they can pull the trigger, the gunner pitches forward, Simo's bullet punching clean through his collar. Panic spreads like fire. Some Soviets drop to their knees, screaming for artillery support. Others break ranks and flee, stumbling through drifts that swallow their legs like quicksand. An officer grabs one by the collar, trying to rally him, only for a bullet to snap his head back. Within minutes, half the Soviet force lies dead. The survivors scramble behind boulders and shattered tree trunks, clutching their rifles with white-knuckled terror. They whisper among themselves. He sees everything. He knows where we are. He can't be humans. But Simo is very human. He can feel the icy sting in his fingers, the burn of cold air in his lungs. He is hungry, exhausted, and carrying the weight of a nation on his shoulders. And still he fights. As dusk settles over the forest, Finnish soldiers advance to secure the area. They find Soviet bodies spread across the snow, some so perfectly placed it seems impossible that a single man could have caused this much devastation in mere hours. But they know the truth. Back at the Finnish lines, Simo returns without ceremony. His comrades greet him with half-joking reverence, calling him things he has never asked for. The Ghost. The Reaper of Kala. The White Death. He simply nods, sits beside the fire, and begins to clean his rifle with methodical care. Lieutenant Arne Judelainen, nicknamed the Terror of Morocco, approaches with a steaming cup of coffee. He watches Simo silently for a long moment, then mutters, "Do you ever miss?" Simo shrugs, "Sometimes." His lieutenant snorts, "Then God help the Russians on the days you don't." But the Soviets aren't done. That very night, scouts bring back chilling intelligence. Red Army Command has issued a direct order. Eliminate the White Death by any means necessary. Dozens of counter-snipers are being deployed. Special units are combing the forests. Artillery batteries have been retasked to saturation bomb any sector where Simo is rumored to be operating. Killing him has become a priority, as high as breaking the Finnish line itself. But Simo merely rises before dawn the next morning, slings his rifle across his back, and disappears into the trees once more. The war is changing. The enemy is adapting. But so is he. And over the next several weeks, Simo Häyhä will do the impossible. He will kill more than 25 Soviet soldiers a day. The true terror of the White Death is only beginning. January 1940, Kala River Sector. The winter war has reached its deadliest phase. Temperatures plunge to 45 degrees F, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. The air itself feels like shattered glass, and every breath cuts the lungs. Snowdrifts tower like pale mountains. The sun hangs low, its light thin and unforgiving. For most soldiers, this is a nightmare. For Simo Häyhä, it is perfect. The Soviets, desperate, frustrated, terrified, pour more men into the Kala front. Fresh units, many unprepared for Arctic warfare, stumble through the ice-choked forests with frost-bitten fingers and raw, blistered faces. They wear brown coats that glow like targets against the white expanse. Simo watches them through the trees, unmoving. He has been here since before dawn, burrowed into a hollow of snow he carved himself. The cold no longer bothers him, it has become his armor. He lines up a shot. Crack! A Soviet scout falls. The echo barely fades before another shot cracks from deeper in the woods, another Soviet sniper attempting to locate him. But Simo has already relocated. He glides between firing positions with such practiced silence that even seasoned Finnish soldiers swear he can walk on snow without leaving prints. He spots movement, a flicker of light glinting off a scope. A Soviet counter-sniper. He lowers his cheek to the stock. Crack. The counter-sniper's helmet jerks back, a neat hole punched through the steel. His partner shouts in panic and dives behind a fallen tree, but Simo shifts, steadies, fires again. Crack. Both are down. By mid-afternoon, the forest is eerily quiet. But this is the quiet that comes before fear, not peace. Because Simo is far from finished. A Soviet platoon pushes through the ravine to the east, 20 men marching cautiously, rifles raised. Their boots crunch loudly in the snow, every sound amplified in the frozen stillness. Simo chooses his moment. Crack. The squad leader drops. Crack. The machine gunner slumps forward. Crack. 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 5 men fall in 15 seconds. The survivors scatter, diving for cover that doesn't exist in the open snowfield. Some fire wildly at distant tree lines. Others huddle together, paralyzed by the terror that every step might draw a bullet. From behind a shattered boulder, a Soviet soldier screams, "Where is he? Where?" But the forest answers only with silence. Then, crack. This routine repeats day after day. Finnish patrols return to camp, whispering incredulous numbers. 20 today. 30. 40. No one quite believes it, until they see Simo return each evening, face raw from frost, rifle steaming faintly in the freezing air. He never brags, never tallies his own kills. Other soldiers count for him. And by mid-January, the tally rises past 200 confirmed kills, all with iron sights. The Soviets respond with fury. Massive artillery barrages rain down on the forests where Simo is believed to be. The shelling churns the snow into geysers, shatters pines, and strips bark off trunks as cleanly as a blade. Yet when the smoke clears, crack, a Soviet officer falls. Crack, another counter-sniper collapses. Simo has survived again. Stories spread like wildfire. Some Soviet soldiers refuse to leave their trenches, others tie metal plates to their helmets. Many begin shooting at shadows, terrified that the White Death is watching them even when he isn't there. Morale crumbles. Finnish officers begin receiving strange reports. Entire Soviet units requesting reinforcements not because they're low on ammunition, but because they are afraid to move. And then, in late January, a particular day cements Simo's legend forever. He kills 25 men in a single day. 25. With a bolt-action rifle. In temperatures that freeze breath into ice crystals. The Finnish command is stunned. They summon Simo to headquarters for recognition, but he simply nods and returns to his dugout. He will not seek medals while the men around him shiver in foxholes and bleed into the snow. He sleeps only a few hours each night. He hunts from dawn until dusk. He becomes a ghost with a rifle, relentless, patient, unstoppable. And in the Red Army's command tents, one name hangs in the air like a curse. Simo Häyhä. The White Death. Soviet generals realize something horrifying. If they do not kill this one man, he might break an entire division by fear alone. So they make a decision that will change everything. They deploy a new weapon. Not artillery. Not snipers. Not traps. Something far more personal. They send a marksman with an explosive bullet. And on a bitter morning in March 1940, the White Death will finally be found. March 6, 1940, Kala Front. The morning is unnaturally still. No wind, no flurries, just a cold so sharp it feels like the world has been carved from glass. Simo Häyhä slips through the tree line, breath steaming faintly in the air, his white suit blending seamlessly with the untouched snow. The Finnish lines have thinned, supplies are dwindling, the men are exhausted, but still they hold. Simo moves into a forward position overlooking a stretch of forest the Soviets have been probing aggressively for days. Something feels off. The woods are too quiet, too empty. A trap. Perhaps. but he has survived 100 days of traps. He drops to his stomach, digs himself into the powder, and raises his rifle. Hours pass. Nothing. Even the birds seem to avoid this part of the forest. Then at last movement. A flicker of brown against the white. A Soviet sniper creeping low. But something is wrong. The man is moving too purposefully, too calmly, not the frantic, terrified motions Simo has come to expect from Soviet infantry. No, this one is steady, focused, prepared. A professional. Simo steadies his breathing. The iron sights settle on the man's chest. Crack. The Soviet drops. But not instantly. He flinches like he was expecting the shot and collapses behind a mound of snow. Strain. Simo watches the body for several seconds. No twitch, no rise and fall of breath. Satisfied, he prepares to relocate. That's when he sees it. Just a glimmer. Barely a shimmer. Sunlight catching on glass. Another scope. A second sniper. Hidden deeper in the trees. This was the real trap. Simo shifts an inch, just enough to adjust his angle. Crack. A split-second flash. Then white. A blast punches into Simo's face like a hammer wrapped in fire. The world explodes into sound and pain as the bullet, an explosive round, detonates on impact. His vision floods with blinding light, his ears ring. The rifle falls from his hands. He tastes blood, warm, metallic, thick. Half his face is gone. Snow turns red beneath him as he tumbles backward, sliding down the small embankment into a drift. He tries to breathe and feels air leaking through shredded flesh. His jaw is shattered, teeth scatter across the snow like seeds. The world narrows, darkens, begins to tilt. But he is not alone. Finnish soldiers sprint toward him, shouting his name, diving into the snow to pull him to safety. One medic nearly slips when he sees the wound, half Simo's cheek missing, jawbone exposed, flesh torn like paper. But Simo is still conscious, still breathing, still alive. They drag him through the forest, shells exploding in the distance, Soviet bullets slicing the air around them. But the Finns do not stop, not for anything. Because they know who lies in their arms. They know they must save him. Hours later, inside a makeshift field hospital, a surgeon leans over Simo's ruined face. Even through the agony, Simo sees the shock in the man's eyes. The surgeon whispers, How are you alive?" Simo can't answer. He can't speak. But he blinks once, slowly. He is alive because he has no intention of dying. Not here. Not now. Not before Finland stands. The doctors work frantically through the night. Reconstructive surgery, debridement, blood transfusions, every tool they have is thrown at keeping him alive. Outside, the winter war rages on. Inside, the White Death clings to life with silent fury. March 13, 1940. 1 week after Simo's injury, the winter war ends. Finland, battered but unbroken, signs the Moscow Peace Treaty. Word of Simo's survival spreads across the front. Soldiers who never met him weep when they hear he lived. Soviet officers refuse to believe it. A man hit in the face by an explosive bullet, surviving. Impossible. Yet true. Simo Häyhä, quiet farmer, unmatched sniper, the White Death, has lived through the one shot meant to kill him. And now, as Finland rebuilds from the ashes, everyone wonders. What becomes of a legend when the war ends? Summer 1940, a field hospital near Helsinki. Warm sunlight filters through the thin curtains, falling across Simo Häyhä's bandaged face. He lies propped on a cot, jaw held together by wires, flesh slowly knitting back into something human. The room smells of antiseptic and summer pine drifting through the open windows. Nurses speak softly when they pass his bed. Young soldiers salute him awkwardly. Officers visit, leaving flowers, medals, and quiet words of gratitude. But Simo can barely speak. His reconstruction will take months, perhaps years. His jawbone is rebuilt, reshaped, restored through painstaking surgeries. Even so, he communicates with nods and gestures. A raised brow. A faint curl of his lip that almost counts as a smile. He has never been one for speeches. Across Finland, newspapers print his story. The world learns of the farmer who killed more than 505 Soviet soldiers in just over 100 days. Historians debate the numbers, soldiers tell stories, and journalists write articles with titles like The Ghost of Kala, The Unseen Terror of the Snow, The Man Who Stopped an Army. But Simo does not read them. He rests. He heals. Autumn 1940, southern Finland. He returns home at last. His family farm sits nestled among rolling fields and birch trees just turning gold before winter. The farmhouse is small, wooden, and quiet, nothing like the shattered trenches of Kala. Simo steps onto the front porch and breathes deeply. The scent of earth, timber, and ripening grain fills his lungs. He is no longer a soldier. No longer a sniper. Just a farmer once more. But the scars remain. A deep indentation along his left jaw. Speech that comes slowly, carefully. A face half remolded by war. Children in nearby villages whisper when he passes. They've heard the stories. Their parents hush them, insisting the man deserves respect, but the children stare anyway, wide-eyed at the legendary hunter returned from hell. Simo doesn't mind. He was never concerned with how others saw him. He spends his days training hunting dogs, tending to his land, and practicing marksmanship only as a quiet hobby. He never brags, never seeks attention. To most who meet him, he is simply a polite, soft-spoken man with a damaged smile and sharp blue eyes. Only a rare few know what those eyes have seen. Years pass. Then decades. Finland rebuilds. New wars rise and fall. Generations grow up hearing stories of a silent sniper in white who stalked the woods and made the Red Army tremble. Simo attends veterans' gatherings. He shakes hands, gives short answers to long questions, and politely avoids any attempts to turn him into a spectacle. One day, a young interviewer asks him a question that many have wondered. Did you ever feel hatred toward the men you shot? Simo pauses, his jaw shifts slightly, still stiff even after decades. At last, he replies with his characteristic simplicity. I did what I was told. As well as I could. No malice. No bitterness. No pride. Just truth. 2001, WWII, Finland. Simo Häyhä sits in a wooden chair by the window of a small nursing home, the winter sun glowing through the glass. He is 95 now, thin, frail, but still sharp behind the eyes. A young soldier visiting him asks one final question. How did you become the greatest sniper in history? Simo considers it. His breath fogs the window slightly. He answers with a faint smile. Practice. April 1, 2002. Simo Häyhä passes away peacefully in his sleep. No fear. No pain. Just a quiet end to a quiet man who once changed the course of a war. He lived to see his nation survive. He lived to walk his own farm again. He lived to age 96, far longer than anyone who faced him in the snows of Kala. History remembers him by many names. The White Death. The Ghost of the Winter War. The deadliest sniper who ever lived. But those who knew him best remember something else. A humble farmer. A loyal soldier. A man who didn't fight for fame. Only for Finland.